Good afternoon, Garnet and old viewers and listeners and new people to the show too. Don't be disappointed. Doug will be here shortly, but I wanted to at least get the stream going, make sure we weren't having any problems. Today has been fun thus far, right? We've all been really glued to what's going on in Mecklenburg County. I don't know how well this is going to play, but I did a really cheap background here with the courthouse. And once Doug gets here, you'll be able to see the Charlotte Mecklenburg courthouse here. Doug is just wrapping up something that he's doing right now. He should be on here pretty soon. In your chat, I know I mentioned it when people started to jump in the chat. Doug's got limited time, and so we're going to let him speak his mind. And then if we have a couple minutes for questions, he could do it. But I think he's getting ready to join in right now. Let's see. Hopefully he's got good signal. There he is. There he is. He's sideways. He's sideways, but that's okay. But we don't need to see him anyway. He's driving. Doug. Today's fantastic. And let me just start by saying you were amazing today. It was fun. It was fun. I tried to keep up with your tweets with some kind of funny GIF or GIF or meme to go along with that. But let's get right to it because I know you're limited on time. People want to know. Overall impression, do you want to start there or do you want to go deep into, We'll start with motion to dismiss and start, piece by piece.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. Of course, just want to make sure my audio is good. You can hear me okay?
It is. Absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, it was fascinating to be there. I really enjoyed it. It was entertaining. Look, one of the things I really love about practicing law is you can have an adversarial system. But it was very clear with the judge and with the parties that, we're not mad at each other. We're not screaming at each other. Everybody's getting along for the most part. It ended at the very end with the judge saying, you guys seem to be behaving in terms of discovery. Do I need to enter an order or is everybody fine with a handshake agreement? He's like, both sides like, yeah, we're good. We're going to behave. We're going to do what we're supposed to do. So it's just a reminder that, a few moments of levity, a few chuckles here and there. And, this is important stuff. We're dealing with billions of dollars, but at the same time, you don't have to be a jerk about it while you're going through this process.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. And I know you were partnered up, maybe not on purpose, but with another gentleman that was live tweeting the event as well. And I was following the both of you. Are you there?
I am, despite being on the interstate. I went through a dead period. Unfortunately, we're probably going to have a couple of those, but we'll deal with it. Everybody wants to hear. So yes, I was partnered up with another gentleman.
Did we get you back?
I'm here. Probably just takes 10 seconds to get to the next cell tower.
Okay. Yeah, so we can move on from that. If you're not following the other guy, he also had some great stuff there too. You want to talk about
the initial? I did. Well, don't move on. I don't know who he is or what his position is, other than a few chats.
I mean, I don't know much about him. I don't know much about him yet. I just know that at the beginning he was kind of giving the impression that the ACC lawyers, from the beginning of their statements, they were doing quite well, and then it tended to go south from there. So while he seemed to be a little more on the ACC, I don't want to say pro ACC, but he seemed to think that they were doing a really good job, and then they weren't. So
well, he admitted to me that he doesn't have a dog in the fight. He doesn't care one way or the other. So hopefully it provides a contrast to what I'm saying and something more objective than the version I'm giving, because again, I am the FSU homer. But yeah, we were talking about that. It was very much the GIF I shared on Twitter was he had me in the first half. Not gonna lie, but Yeah, the ACC attorney started off very polished, very, aw shucks, and did a good job. Clearly, he had spent a lot of time preparing the first half. But then, yeah, at some point, the judge just started peppering him with questions, really got him off his game, and he struggled to get back into the groove. He wasn't even answering two-thirds of the questions the judge was asking.
Yeah, I mean, I assume they're used to that, but when someone has their eyes on the prize, it's almost like they don't feel they can't absorb the inbound things, right?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not going to be critical of either side. It's hard to be up there and trying to maintain your line of thought, trying to listen to what the question is without getting lost, come up with a cohesive answer for it, and really both sides ultimately did struggle with that. I think the judge was trying to lead the FSU lawyers in a certain direction a couple times, and they just weren't picking up what the judge was putting down. And I think that it's just a function of that overwhelm that comes in your brain as you're trying to do 9 things at once and talking about really, really detailed technical issues.
Yeah, there's a big buildup to this day, right? So all that energy, all that adrenaline, all that work is leading up to today, and it's almost like a cathartic. I got to get this all out. I'm not even going to listen to
Yes.
the things that are going on around me. So,
Oh, and by the
um,
way, you're being
yeah,
timed, and there's a lady in the front with a placard that's holding up 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. Just like in debate club. It's yeah, you don't just
great.
get to be up there and expound forever.
So, do you want to start with the first motion to dismiss or stay, and kind of give your thoughts on
Yeah.
that part of it?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, if I were to try to handicap what's going to happen, I don't think the judge is going to give up the case, especially with Clemson now filing suit. I know we were all excited that Clemson filed suit, and we're interested to have a friend with us in this fight. But that case has been assigned to the same judge in the same courtroom, and I think he's realizing that there is some teeth to the argument. Why am I going to give these cases to all these other disparate states? Why am I going to let Florida decide? Why am I going to let South Carolina decide one singular issue involving one member that is going to have an impact on all the other members? The ACC is in North Carolina. It makes sense for him to keep both the FSU Clemson cases, I think. I could be proven wrong as I research the issue, but I think there are enough similarities in the cases. The judge could even merge the Clemson and FSU lawsuits together and just hear them both at the same time for judicial economy. So at the end of the day, it is possible and probable that this stays in North Carolina. I don't think the motion to stay is granted. I don't think the motion to dismiss is granted. The judge did have some issues there, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to remind you that the judge can still take Florida law into consideration. The judge can still make this decision based on how Florida law is impacting these agreements and this member. So this likely stays in North Carolina.
And when you say it likely stays in North Carolina, that doesn't mean that the Florida case does not move forward, correct?
That's what's going to be interesting to see. Is the Florida judge willing to acquiesce to North Carolina hanging on, or does the Florida judge rule, no, this is a Florida case, and then we have a conflict that probably will have to be resolved by the federal courts?
Wow. Okay. And going back to the thought of maybe merging the Clemson case, that seems sticky. Does the Florida state contingent then work in consort with the Clemson group? Or are they doing this in a separate deal?
Well, and first, they're talking, they're
Right.
sharing thoughts. One of the reasons why Clemson delayed was because it was an opportunity to see, okay, what arguments are Florida State making? What is the ACC saying in response? What can we do to come up with our more principled argument? And I go to the shape of the Clemson complaint overall. We haven't had a chance to talk much about this, but the Clemson complaint's a little bit more dialed back. It's a little bit less of the, intrigue between the Swaffords and the tier one and tier two rights. But one of the big changes they did make is they tried to interpret the grant of rights and the ESPN agreement in conjunction. They tried to marry the two, saying, look, the language in the grant of rights presupposes that this ESPN agreement remains in place, that the members of the conference remain in the conference, and any effort to leave is not barred. It's just saying that the ESPN agreement is no longer going to be valid in terms of what our payments are. And if there's no agreement on what our payments are, the grant of rights is effectively unenforceable. It's a creative
Right.
argument. I don't think it's a winning argument, but it's one example of how Clemson took from the 60 days that we've been fighting over this issue to try to reshape a little bit their arguments.
Got it. And I think you've already kind of made your point on this, but we got a super chat for this. Want to make sure I pull this up, but uh, BU at 12 with Patrick, $5 says, how does feel this judge will rule? 80% chance to dismiss. I think you've already kind of stated you don't think that that's going to happen. And the cell tower may not be happening right now. Stand by, everybody.
Trying to use the map to actually know where I'm going, but apparently it won't let me do both at the same time.
I got you. Did you
issue,
hear the question?
Yeah, I heard you perfectly fine, which is why I thought I could keep doing that. At the end of in this particular issue, I had said going into that I thought there was a 10% chance of dismissal and maybe a 40% chance of a stay. I really don't think the judge is going to stay now. The thing I point to there is that the judge did make hay out of this idea of not voting and not having the material litigation. The judge was not buying that at all. I just don't know that that's enough of an argument for the judge to say my hands are tied, because that's the only way he comes to a pro FSU decision. If he only believes that there's no legal recourse, no jurisdictional ability to hold on to this case. They made a lot of hay about the Gao case. They were talking about the Gao case. And what was interesting there was that ESPN is citing to this case for the holding that you can vote later and relate back to the prior complaint. Well, the FSU did do a good job, and the judge was accepting their argument, I believe, that the Gao case related back to a second complaint, not the original first complaint. And the judge's point there is if there is no first complaint, then there is no complaint. No jurisdiction has been established to begin with. And I think if FSU can be successful, that's what they're going to hang their hat on. Now, what's the practical reality of it? Okay, so the judge says you're not first to file, but then there's 10 other factors I can use to say that this still should be in North Carolina. So the judge could say, first complaint's invalid, you're right, I'm dismissing the case, but go ahead and refile. That's how you cure the technicality. And even though you're filing second, I'm still going to keep this case here in North Carolina.
Yeah, I get it. And by the way, that's very confusing. But you did a good job in your tweets, kind of spelling that out. So I appreciate that. We got another super chat here. This is kind of funny. What was the most poignant moment of today's proceeding?
I really liked when the judge was being authentic on that issue of the material litigation. The ESPN tried to bring up the material media rights, and the judge was like, well, that's exactly my point. You did define material media rights. That's 5% of gross revenues. You're trying to interpret the second part of that, which is that the board president has the freedom to come up with any other thing that he thinks is a material media right, but you've at least given us a context for how we can determine a material media right. By contrast, material litigation, you made no effort to define that, so I can only use Webster's dictionary to define what material is, and putting in jeopardy the existence of the conference is material.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Great. Strongest arguments on either side for this portion of the proceeding today that you saw, and weakest maybe? Or maybe you go with just the weakest.
Yeah, I think the weakest argument from Florida State was when they were trying to assert the issue of the sovereign immunity statute. This one is one that's actually going to be a little bit more interesting, because I had gone on your show and I talked to you before about the Maryland case from 2013, and that there was no recognition of the sovereign immunity statute in preventing Maryland from being sued. Similarly, here, the judge is saying, well, there's a new case law that came out. Hyatt is this new case. I'm not familiar with it. because I'm not one of the attorneys involved in this litigation, and I didn't have to research every case. But what he was saying is that's basically turned the entire idea of the sovereign immunity language and statutes on its head. They had to basically start.
Sit tight, everybody. The wonders of technology in motion. And we will get back to that while we're waiting. Joe Marino, thank you so much for $4.99 super chat. If you want to have a question, we'll try to get that up there as well. But thank you, Joe. Let's see. Maybe I can hand a couple questions here. Yeah, Jen Knoll, you can let us know if you guys are going to have a podcast tonight. I kind of assume you will on Renegade Report. By the way, I was following all this thing along on Greg Flugar's show and peek around the corner. If you don't follow Greg, please do. He does a great job, and his shows are very interactive, and you get a good chance. It's a large breadth of different people, different schools, affiliations, and stuff. So if you're not following Greg, please do so. We got you back, Doug.
I got you back. Where did I lose you?
Excellent. We were talking about sovereign immunity.
Yep. How far did I get down that rabbit hole?
I think you were talking about Maryland and how that didn't how that doesn't play.
So there's a new case out, Hyatt, that turned it all upside down.
Yep.
So the new law isn't established enough. But the judge was basically telling Florida State, you're wrong. There is no fictional border along the Florida State line that prevents Florida State from being sued in another state. And
Right.
So that's where I think the weakest argument for Florida State was. The weakest argument for the ACC, I think that they've got a problem with this vote. I think they've got a problem with the relate back. And it'll be interesting to see what the judge does to try to reconcile the problem with that and the desire to keep the case moving forward in North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty clear because the things that you were tweeting, the judge was finishing sentences for people, and just basically coming back at them saying, yeah, but it doesn't make sense what you're asking here.
Yep.
What about the whole motion to seal part of the day?
So that was actually ended up being more interesting than I thought it would be. And certainly there's a lot of people on Twitter that are more interested in this than I am. But I thought ESPN's attorney was really the best one and most prepared one today, did the best job with his presentation. But the argument there is, look, this has never, ever been made public before. There's never an opportunity for these documents to be released. We have an ongoing issue with these documents being released because have the participation of the members in the existing contract. And so other networks want to know what the details are, and other downstream clients that are signing these agreements want to negotiate a better deal. So we have to keep the details of this agreement, both the terms, the warranties, and the amounts, secret so that they can't be used against us, basically.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, I think I would agree with that, but secret from the people that are involved,
Well, and that was one of the things that the judge was pointing out. He was like, look, you're going to get this agreement. You can't stand there and tell me that you're worried about secrecy on these documents because you need them for litigation. You're going to have them. It will be redacted from public, and I'll seal it from public. You just you won't be able to put it out there. To which Florida State's argument was, well, then I'm the one that's breaking Florida law because Florida law requires me to disclose the agreements that I'm part of. So it is going to be an interesting issue is how does the judge reconcile the protective order? How does he shape the protective order in such a way that still respects and honors the sunshine laws? And I don't know how he's going to do that.
That's going to be crazy because at one point, the ESPN lawyer, according to your tweet, started down the path of reciting the language, but stopped short of the point where it says, as determined by the laws of the states in which the members reside. Like they didn't say that part, but the judge finished it for her or for him.
Yeah, that was actually the ACC attorney Stone, and yeah, the judge she read from the screen. She had a whole big PowerPoint presentation. She was reading from this, highlighted section, and so she reads the highlighted section. The judge is like, "And what about the rest of the sentence? What do the other 10 words say?" And that there, the FSU did pick up on that, and they hammered that point home about the other 10 words. The other 10 words are what's so important when we're litigating.
Another super chat here from Facts Over Fandom. How did the judge take the point made by FSU's lawyer of ESPN only disclosing 13 of the 160 contract pages, and how ESPN made no effort? And I assume he's referring, or this person's also referring to the fact that the judge didn't even get those documents.
Yeah. So the initial disclosure it has to go with a privilege log. So you're supposed to tell the judge what's in that documentation that's being requested. And again, at some point, the judge will order production of the full agreement for his in-camera review, for his personal review. We just have to go through this technical process of getting the agreement sealed or getting permission for the redactions to be part of the public record. Because as the judge said at the outset of this portion of the argument, that we recognize that there is a open nature in litigation. It's in order to prevent fraud, in order to prevent governmental abuse, in order to prevent the disruption of our society. Public courts are open. That's why I was able to go into the court today and observe. You can't do things in the shadows. You can't do things without the information being public. So there is a mechanism under certain circumstances for items to be maintained private, but it's the burden of the ACC and ESPN to show what that harm would be. How is it that this needs to be maintained? And so FSU's point was, you don't even know what's in there. You're taking their word for it. And let me point to 3 places where when we take their word for it, they were wrong. They said 3 different things. Now, I don't think that was a particularly strong argument either. The distinctions weren't material, but it was, a way to point out to the judge, look, if we have to rely on what they say the documents say, they haven't been faithful and honest about what the documents themselves say.
Yeah, I think it's disingenuous to expect the FSU side to be able to put together, a strong case for anything if they don't have all the information. So,
and that was the point they were at. We have to be able to defend ourselves. We can only defend ourselves if we see the documents, and if we see the documents, Florida Sunshine Laws requires their disclosure.
I did not agree, by the way, with the judge's contention that that the trade secrets, like, Coke has been a trade secret for hundreds of years, and why is this any different? That's totally different, in my opinion. But
yeah,
trying to be funny, I assume. Hi, Jen. Jen says, "Hey, loves, great show." Hi, Doug. Just want to make sure.
Hey, Jen.
Let's see. No other super chats here. So, what is your time frame, Doug, for the rest of the day?
I've got a 4-hour drive back to Atlanta, which of course is going to put me in there right in the middle of rush hour traffic. I was disappointed that we didn't get done by 11 or 11:30. So I'm going to be dealing with rain. I'm going to be dealing with traffic. And then once I get home, I turn around and pack up for a rainy weekend camping with my middle daughter to learn some wilderness first aid, and probably set up my tent about 9 o'clock tonight.
Fantastic. So I know you have some other things you got to do in terms of appearances today. Why don't you kind of wrap up? Unless you want to go long form, we can.
No, I got to get out of here. I've got to grab lunch before hopping on another show. And so, at the end of the day, I really liked what the judge said. I liked how the judge presented himself, and he presented the arguments honestly and faithfully. He wasn't playing gotcha. He wasn't completely one-sided in favor of the ACC. I think the case stays in North Carolina, but I think we get a fair shake from the judge, and ultimately, this case is going to settle. That's what we've been saying all along.
Right.
So there will be some kind of an agreement. It would behoove the ACC to do something that leads to their long-term existence and success. But going to trial a year from now and losing that trial a year from now would be utter disaster for the ACC. So they're going to try to parlay the strength of the uncertainty into as rich a deal as they can get. Let Clemson out, let Florida State out, let anybody else out that can pay those dollar figures, and then become a basketball school going forward. Or basketball going
Exactly. Yeah. I agree with you. So, while I go through the housekeeping items here, those of you that are new today, welcome. If you've not joined the show before, Garnet and Old does a weekly show every Thursday night at 7 p.m. And Doug is going to be a weekly contributor to the show because of all this mess and just because Doug is awesome. So he's going to be part of the show. It's mostly Florida State related, ACC related, but we obviously touch on college athletics in general. And like I said, if you're new, if you don't mind, go and like and subscribe and share. We are less than 100 away from 1,000 subscribers on YouTube at this point. Thank you, ACC lawsuit. All right. But we welcome everybody. And then also, Doug, you can find Doug. You probably already know where to find Doug, but Doug is found at Rohan Law PC on X. And Doug, you want to do a quick commercial for you?
Yeah, if the cell signal is strong enough now, if you've got a friend in Atlanta or anywhere in Georgia with an arrest or with a work accident, we're here to make sure that they get taken care of and their rights are preserved. So please keep our information handy. I hope you don't need me. I don't want you to need me. But should you find yourself in a position to need me, at least you get an awesome goal to follow you through the very difficult time in your life.
When we meet again, Doug, we have some more words to add to the Garnet and Old legal flashcards that came out earlier today. Excellent. We'll talk about those on Thursday. And other than that, give us a follow, give us a share, give us a like. We always end with screw ESPN eternally. And also send the Chiefs all the damn time. Doug, thank you so much. I will chat at you later, brother.
Sounds good. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in. There'll be more shows, I'm sure, about this throughout the FSU and ACC fandom. Follow them all. Follow them all. I mean, this is the type of scenario where the more people are involved in this, the better for everybody. So recommend them all. And we will catch you on Thursday at 7 p.m., if not sooner. Garnet and Old, our tagline is no inside info, no contacts, no problem. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Go Noles.